Now that you know what is HTML and what does it look like, and so far you have already created your first web page with a simple HTML page and you just opened it in a browser and you see all the text. But so far we have just, written some text. We have not yet written real HTML code. And that's what we're going to do in this video. But for that, I have created a very handy cheat sheet for you on what HTML elements look like and how to code them. Once you understand that, everything else is going to be a breeze. So let's get started. Now remember that I told you that HTML only has one concept, which is the HTML elements. All right, so I'm going to zoom. We're just going to focus on this particular part over here, the left side, and I'm going to zoom in and we're going to simply ignore this particular part, the rest of the parts. All right, so ignore all of that and we're just going to focus on this part. So you see an HTML element is what, when you write an HTML element, it displays some content on the screen. So the attributes of an HTML element is that, first of all, an element has an opening tag. An opening tag simply looks like this, right? So you have a less than sign, the name of the element, and a closing sign. This is optional, all right? So that's what it looks like. So let's just code that. So let's say if I want to create a paragraph, what I'm going to write is simply less than sign, P, and a closing sign. That's it. And I've created the opening tag of my HTML element, which is called the P element. All right. Now let's see further. Now the second thing it needs is a closing tag. So with elements, every element that opens also needs to close. And the closing tag simply is the same as the opening tag, but it has a slash over here, a forward slash. That's all. All right. So I'm going to simply do the same thing. I'm going to do less than sign, forward slash, and P. And you see it happened very quickly is because we're using a text editor like VS Code, and it automatically detects what I want to write because it knows that all elements that open have to close, so it automatically inserted the P. It happened pretty fast. You may have not noticed it. All right, so moving on. So we have created the opening tag and we have also created a closing tag of our element. So this is an element, right? And we're creating a paragraph. All right, moving ahead. So all elements have an opening tag, a closing tag, and optionally they have attributes and they have children. So attributes are like options for those elements. So let's say, I'm a human and I have certain attributes. I have hands, I have eyes, I have ears, and I have other options, right? I have these features. When you get a car, you have a car, but then the car has maybe, Bluetooth feature, maybe a sunroof. These are features that it has, right? So attributes are simply features for that particular element. And the way to write that is you simply put the attribute name is equal to the value of that attribute in the opening tag. So let's say this paragraph can have an ID. So I can say ID is equal to, let's say, whatever name. So first para. All right, that's the name, that's the attribute. That's all. I mean, these are optional. These are optional. We don't have to have it. All right, so I'm just going to put it in. And the other thing that all elements or some elements optionally have is something called children. So children is something that is inside that particular element between the opening and the closing element. So over here, this is the opening, closing, and this is the children. Anything inside that is going to be a child or multiple children. All right, so let's write that. So let's say this particular P element has some children as text. So I'm going to say this is the text for the paragraph. All right, I'm just going to write whatever I want to write. And this is considered the children of this particular element. Okay, so digest this information. That's all you need to know about HTML, all right, or HTML elements. So basically, now when we do that, I'm going to save and I'm going to refresh, and you see that text appears, but basically it's the same as the coming soon text. It's just text because paragraph texts are simple text. So basically you have written your first HTML element with an opening tag, with a closing tag, and one child. Now this can have multiple children. So let's say if I want to add another element inside that, although you cannot have a paragraph within a paragraph, but just for example, I'm going to actually do a span tag. Span is just a container, all right? So I'm going to do span and I'm going to hit tab. And VS Code is smart enough to create the opening and closing tags for us. So it did that, and my cursor is in the middle section, so I can write the child. So I can just simply hit enter, and I'm going to start writing. This is some more text. All right, that's it. I'm going to hit save. I'm going to refresh, and you see that that text also appeared. Now, a few things to notice is that whenever you are writing children, you always want to indent that particular code so it's easier for a developer to read. So for instance, the P element has two children. One is the plain text, and then one is the span element. This is the new element inside the P element, right? So you see that I've created these two spaces, the two spaces over here, right? That is easy for me to read that, okay, there's a P element that starts over here and ends over here. You see, text editors are very handy because if I put my cursor over here, it automatically highlights the ending as well. So it's easier for me to see as a developer where the opening and ending is happening. All right. The next thing is that you see all this is aligned over here. So I can just see, oh yeah, they're like, I can clearly see there are two children, child number one, child number two. And when I'm writing the children for the span element, this is also indented two more spaces, all right? And the VS Code editor is very handy. It automatically does that for us. So let's say if I create another span, I hit tab and I hit enter, you see it automatically put the additional two tabs over here, or two spaces that I can start typing. So that's why a text editor is very handy. Other editors also do that, but VS Code is awesome. You should use that. And now in this lesson, you have seen the 4 building blocks of an element, and that's all you need to know about the syntax of HTML. Actually, there's one more thing you need to know about HTML elements. I'm going to tell you that in the next video. Talk to you then.